Hey, you look at you for a moment. Frozen in that doorway you didn't even mean to walk through. Yet everything on the other side belongs to you now. Tell me, did you even notice the ground shift under your feet when you stepped over that line? Or did the universe just exhale, like it had been waiting for you to finally stop pretending you were small? Because that's what's bothering them. That's what's twisting their stomachs into knots and making old enemies whisper prayers they haven't used in years. You didn't break in. You didn't request entry. You didn't knock. You crossed. And the whole damn operation bent around you like metal around a magnet. And now they're asking each other the same question you've been avoiding. WTF, did you just step over? Let me answer it for you. You crossed the one threshold they never planned for. The one that turns saints into strategists, psychopaths into prophets, and quiet kids into commanders of chaos. You crossed the line between who you were told to be and who you were built to be. And once you crossed it, you didn't just walk forward. You took over the entire board. No meetings, no introductions, no permission slips. Just raw inevitability wearing your face like a mask. You don't even realize how terrifying that is, do you? You with your contradictions, your heaven-scorched rage, your hell-scented patience, your eyes that look like someone mixed mercy with murder and hit shuffle. You moved once, and every hierarchy within a mile radius started recalculating their chain of command. Do you hear the silence? That's the sound of people with power trying not to breathe too loudly, because they're afraid you'll hear them panic. You stepped over a line they drew, and somehow you became the one giving orders. That's not normal. That's not logical. That's not human. That's evolution with a pulse. That's a paradox crowned in scars. That's a creature made of every no you survived, and every watch this you whispered under your breath when no one believed in you. They don't fear what you did. They fear what you didn't do yet. Because the moment you crossed that invisible threshold, you unlocked something they don't have a name for. Something feral, holy, mathematical, catastrophic. You turned unpredictability into a language. You turned pressure into prophecy. You turned pain into a protocol only you can run. And then you walked into their operation, their system, their kingdom, their neat little machine. And the damn thing started humming in your rhythm like it forgot who built it. You didn't take control. Control recognized you. There's a difference, see? Some people claw their way to the top. Some beg, some manipulate, some decay on the way up. But you don't climb, you appear. And the entire room adapts. You crossed a line between dimensions. The line where the version of you they expected and the version of you they secretly feared shake hands in the dark. You walked past their boundaries like they were chalk on a rainy sidewalk. You walked into their strategy rooms, their surveillance grids, their whispered plans. And everything inside froze like animals sensing a predator with a scent they've never encountered. Because you're not a threat they understand. You're a threat that rewrites understanding. Tell me, do you remember the exact second it happened? The second the world looked back at you and realized, oh, he's not playing the game, he's running it. They thought you were crossing a line, but you weren't crossing, you were ascending. An ascension makes mortals tremble. You stepped over something ancient. The line between self-doubt and self-authorization, between being watched and being obeyed, between being underestimated and being unavoidable. They wanted you obedient, predictable, grateful for scraps, but you You walked into a storm they engineered and became the eye. You didn't fold. You didn't flinch. You didn't even raise your voice. You just existed correctly, and suddenly the entire operation rearranged itself like a puzzle snapping into its final form. That's why they're sweating. That's why they're pacing. That's why they're whispering your name like a warning and a prophecy at the same time. Because once someone crosses that particular line, they never go back. And you aren't going back to anything. You are the new gravitational center, the quiet threat, the loud secret, the saint with blood on his fingertips, the demon with mercy in his eyes, the paradox they should have never provoked. So let me ask you again, just for the poetry of it, WTF did you step over? A boundary, a limit, a rule, a warning? No, you stepped over fate, and it bowed its head instead of pushing back. You crossed one line, and the whole damn operation is yours now. Whether they like it or not, of course you want more. Of course you do, because you can feel it, can't you? That eerie electric understanding settling into your bones, the realization that what you stepped over wasn't a line. It was a threshold, and once a creature like you crosses a threshold, it doesn't return to the shape it wore yesterday. Now listen, not because I asked, but because even the air around you is leaning in, waiting for the next revelation to drop like a guillotine blade. You think they're scared because you moved fast. No. They're scared because you moved right. There's a difference, a huge one. Anyone can rush forward. Only a rare, terrifying few can take one step and realign the whole simulation. You didn't sprint, you didn't charge, you didn't roar. You just crossed, quietly, casually, almost accidentally. And that's exactly why it scrambled their systems. See, if you meant to do it, they could strategize, they could run countermeasures, they could prepare. But how do you prepare for someone who makes world-shaking moves with the same energy most people use to tie their shoes? You crossed the line like it was nothing, and suddenly every hidden agenda, every power player, every watcher behind the watchers felt their pulse stop for a second too long. Because people like them understand something instinctively. A person who steps over a line without noticing it is a person who can't be contained by any line at all. Tell me, did you feel the way the atmosphere shifted around you after it happened? Did you feel how the room inhaled sharply like you were a volatile chemical introduced into a lab environment? Did you feel the attention whip toward you, like reality itself was turning its head? Of course you did. It pressed against your skin. It whispered on your spine. It crawled down your nerves like a message encoded in static. Not fear, not worship, something worse. Recognition. That's what drives them insane. Not your power, not your moves, not your plans. It's the bone-deep, soul-level recognition that you are not playing with the same ingredients as everyone else. They think in steps. You think in leaps. They think in warnings. You think in aftermaths. They think in hours. You think in eras. You stepped over a line, and somehow stepped into an identity you didn't even realize was waiting for you. Do you know what they're saying now behind closed doors? The trembling ones, the ones who thought they understood your species. They're whispering, how the hell did he rise so fast? Who gave him clearance? Who let him in the command chain? And here's the punchline. Nobody did. You didn't need permission. You didn't need access. You didn't need blessings. Your existence rewrote the hierarchy. You crossed one line and instantly occupied a seat no one offered you. A seat nobody else could even see. Because you weren't climbing the ladder. You were realizing it was beneath you. You crossed into a place where your shadow speaks louder than most people's full voice, where your silence is a verdict, where your presence reroutes strategies, where your intuition is treated like classified data. You, my friend, you walked over a line, and the system scrambled to place you at the top before you even asked what the meeting was about. That is not normal. That is not luck. That is not timing. That is a phenomenon, a psychological anomaly wrapped in skin and nerve endings, a saint with a psychopath's precision, a demon with an angel's restraint, a paradox that refuses to collapse into something predictable. You want to know the real reason they're panicking? Because they watched you step over that line, and something ancient in their instincts told them, if he can do that without trying, what happens when he finally decides to? And that idea, that possibility, that unspoken threat, is shaking the foundations under their feet. You are no longer a participant in their operation. You are the axis it spins around. You don't just influence the room, you tilt it. You don't just enter the conversation, you redefine it. You don't just move, you create aftershocks. And here's the darkest, most electrifying part. You haven't even hit full power yet. This line you crossed, it wasn't the destination, it was the ignition switch. Before this, you were running on restraint, on politeness, humility, second-guessing, hesitation. But now the part of you that was sleeping has opened its eyes. Now the part of you that was whispering has started speaking in clear, cold sentences. Now the part of you that used to wait is stepping forward, uninvited, unstoppable, undeniable. You didn't step over a line, you stepped over a warning sign and kept walking like the threat was never meant for you. And you know what? It wasn't. Because you were never the one in danger, they were. And now, they're learning slowly, painfully. Too late. You crossed one line and became the nightmare that runs their entire operation from the shadows they forgot to lock. Now keep walking. There are more lines waiting for you, and none of them are ready for what happens once you step over those too. Oh, there it is, that hunger, that quiet, dangerous hunger crawling up your spine, like something ancient finally remembering its own name. Good, because we're nowhere near the bottom of this revelation. You think you've crossed the line? No. You crossed the threshold where explanations stop making sense. The moment your foot hit the other side, something shifted, subtle, seismic, irreversible. Every system that once ignored you now compensates for you. Every power that once underestimated you now adjusts itself around you, like planets responding to a new gravitational center. And you don't even realize how rare that is. Most people spend their whole lives begging to be seen. You breathed, and the entire operation recalibrated. That's why they keep staring at you like you're a glitch in their training. Something that shouldn't logically exist. Something the universe accidentally leaked into the mortal domain. You crossed one line, and the world is acting like you opened a classified file no one was supposed to know existed. Let's go deeper. Let's peel this thing open until the truth stings. Do you know what a line represents? A limit, a boundary, a warning, a psychological fence meant to keep ordinary minds in check. But you treated that line like a joke, like a smudge on the floor, like an invitation to see what would happen if you dared to be you. That's what terrifies them most. You didn't cross that line out of rebellion. You crossed it out of instinct. Your nature did it. Your essence did it. Your wiring did it. And there is nothing more terrifying to powerful people than someone whose instinct is stronger than their strategy. You walked into their system with the aura of someone who wasn't visiting. You were inheriting, and inheritance hits different when no one signed the paperwork. Picture it. The second your foot landed on the forbidden side, the old guard froze. Not because you broke a rule, but because you didn't look back. Because something about the way you moved made it obvious you weren't crossing for the first time. You were returning to a place you were always meant to command. Your eyes adjusted too fast. Your mind mapped the terrain instantly. Your presence rearranged the hierarchy before you even opened your mouth. They saw it. They felt it. And for the first time in their carefully regulated, tightly monitored lives, they understood the difference between having power and witnessing a force. If you want to know why they're trembling, why they're sending messages at midnight, why they're redrawing weapons they haven't used in years, why they're holding emergency meetings with your name underlined in red, it's because you didn't cross a line. You activated a mode they don't recognize, a mode they can't predict, a mode they cannot, under any circumstance, control. You walked into their structure, and the damn structure bent around you like reality was making room. Some people earn authority, some people steal it, some people demand it, but you generate it. Authority radiates from you like heat from a wildfire, and they're standing there watching, realizing no one trained you for this, no one mentored you, no one briefed you, no one carved you from their lineage. You came out of the smoke with a leader's posture and a predator's intuition, like the universe stamped a command code into your blood. That's what they can't compute. That's what they are whispering about in terrified circles. He stepped over one line, and now he's running everything. Because they trusted their boundaries, they trusted their control, they trusted their protocols, their surveillance, their structure, their neat little political dance. Until you showed up and proved the one thing they can't survive. An unpredictable mind with nothing left to lose and nothing left to fear. Pain shaped you, pressure sharpened you, silence trained you, chaos welcomed you, duality sculpted you. You are order and disorder, mercy and violence, sanity and nightmare, angel and demon. Everything they tried to suppress wrapped into one walking contradiction that somehow knows exactly where to strike. Do you know what you look like to them now? A ghost wearing skin, a prophecy disguised as a problem, a disaster that learned how to strategize, a miracle that learned how to fight, a threat that learned how to smile. When you crossed that line, you exposed their biggest blind spot. They prepared for enemies. They prepared for rivals. They prepared for rebels. But they never prepared for you. A paradox with purpose, a weapon with compassion, a leader born from ruin, a force they can't classify because you don't operate in binaries. You operate in breakthroughs. They asked each other, what did he step over? Wrong question. They should be asking, what did we just unleash? Because you're not done. You're not even warmed up. This line you crossed was just the first layer, the first seal, the first fracture in the walls they built to keep people like you from rising. Now those walls are listening. Now those walls are cracking. Now those walls know your name. And you're walking forward with the calm of someone who's finally realized there are no lines anymore. Only territory waiting for you to claim it. You feel it, don't you? That slow creeping shift in your chest, like something ancient just stretched its limbs and whispered, finally, good. Because what's coming next isn't comfort, it's clarity, the dangerous kind. Let's peel another layer off this beautiful catastrophe you've become. When you stepped over that line, the world didn't just react. It recoiled, not because you were loud, Not because you flexed, not because you declared war, but because the moment your foot crossed that boundary, the atmosphere around you shifted into something that could only be described as inevitability. Most people need time to rise. They need applause. They need motivation. They need mentors. They need maps. You needed a single step, one motion, one breath, one moment where you stopped obeying a script that wasn't written for you. And that's what shook them. Because lines aren't just markers. They are control mechanisms. They exist to tell you where you end and where someone else begins. They exist to keep the powerful comfortable and the unpredictable contained. But you didn't just cross it. You invalidated it. You made the boundary look stupid, like it was a suggestion instead of a law, like it was a joke instead of a threat. And when someone makes a boundary look meaningless, every person who depends on that boundary suddenly realizes they've been living behind cardboard walls and calling it a fortress. That's what happened the second you crossed over. All their systems, all their protocols, all their carefully engineered dominance collapsed inward like wet paper. You walked forward, and every person who thought they were untouchable felt something cold slide down their spine. Because if you could step over that line so effortlessly, what else have you been holding back? What other lines are you capable of crossing? What other doors are you capable of unlocking? What other hierarchies are you capable of swallowing whole? Their fear isn't about what you did. It's about what you could do next. They're terrified for the same reason generals fear storms. Not because storms arrive, but because storms don't negotiate. And you've become exactly that, a walking weather system with a pulse. Uncontrolled, unpredictable, unapologetic. They don't know whether you're going to bless them, break them, or simply pass by like they don't exist. And that uncertainty, that exquisite, mind-melting uncertainty, is what's frying their circuits. Because for the first time in their carefully curated lives, they don't have a read on you. Not your direction, not your motive, not your temperature, not your tolerance. You stepped over a line and vanished from every category they had prepared. Too calm to be a threat, too sharp to be dismissed, too quiet to be predicted, too dangerous to be ignored. You became something new, something that lives in duality, heaven's patience mixed with hell's efficiency, a saint's restraint wrapped around a psychopath's precision, a strategist with a monster's instincts, a leader with a soldier's scars, a ghost wearing a heartbeat. How do you confront someone built out of contradictions? How do you stop a creature forged from both light and ruin? How do you control a person who became themselves by stepping over the very line that was meant to contain them? You don't. You can't. And they're just beginning to understand that. Let's not pretend you stumbled into this power. Let's not pretend it was luck. Let's not pretend it was chance. Every scar sharpened you. Every betrayal stripped you. Every silence carved you. Every failure trained you. Every loss reforged you. You didn't cross that line by accident. You crossed it because you finally caught up to the version of you that was waiting on the other side. That version, the one running the operation, the one they whisper about now, the one they monitor like a fault line. That's your true self, the one born from ashes, the one shaped in pain's crucible, the one who knows exactly who he is and is no longer afraid to act on it. And now that you've stepped into your own blueprint, there's nothing left to restrict you. Not fear, not doubt, not consequences, not permission, not history, not expectation, not anything drawn by hands smaller than yours. So here's the truth they'll never say out loud. You didn't cross a line. You erased it. You inherited everything behind it. and now. Every step you take is another quiet takeover, another shift in power. Well, 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 look at you. That stillness you carry, it's louder than their screams ever were. You feel that, don't you? That little shiver crawling up your spine right now. That's not fear. That's recognition. Because you finally noticed what everyone else saw long before you did. You didn't survive the war. You walked out of it like it was light work. While they were praying for a miracle, you were out here manufacturing outcomes with nothing but instinct, rage, and that eerie little smile you pretend you don't know you have. And the funniest part, they keep replaying the footage, trying to understand how the hell you did it. How did he eat the snakes? How did he dodge every op? How did he walk out untouched? Sweetheart, you didn't dodge anything. You saw it coming before they even decided to strike. That's the part that breaks their minds. See, normal people survive chaos. You prey on it. You treat pressure like oxygen and venom like seasoning. Give you a snake, you sharpen your teeth. Give you an op, you turn their entire blueprint into compost before breakfast. Give you a war, and you walk out of the rubble dusting off your shoulders like it was a mild inconvenience. They expected you to panic. They expected you to fold. They expected you to become predictable. But predictable things don't terrify people. Unpredictability does. You know what you are? A paradox in motion, a saint with a psychopath's focus, an angel with a demon's appetite. A walking contradiction that confuses every algorithm, every enemy, every analyst trying to decode you like a faulty prophecy. You ate the snakes because you understood something they'll never admit. Threats taste better when they're desperate. You dodged every op because you didn't just see their moves. You saw the fear behind their moves, the trembling, the hesitation, the hope that maybe this time they'd catch you slipping. But you don't slip, you shift, you evolve mid-strike. You rewrite the rules while they're still reading the old manual. And when the war finally hit its loudest, ugliest crescendo, when the smoke got thick enough to choke whole bloodlines, you didn't run. You walked through it, calm, cold, silent. Like a man strolling through light rain. That's what haunts them, not the chaos, not the casualties, not the aftermath, the calm, your calm, the I already saw this coming calm. They don't understand men like you. They don't understand creatures built from impact trauma and resurrection cycles. They don't understand beings who look at betrayal like a training drill and at war like a networking opportunity. Because you weren't created in peace. You weren't shaped by comfort. You weren't sculpted by approval. You were forged in the exact moment everyone assumed you'd break. That crack, that fracture, that split second where any other soul would have collapsed. You didn't collapse. You split into two, the one they knew and the one they never wanted to meet. Light and dark, saint and psychopath, angel and demon, two halves shaking hands in the middle of the battlefield. And that fusion, that impossible catastrophic harmony, is what walked out of the war untouched. You know why you terrify them? Because you're the only creature they've ever seen who can swallow poison, analyze it, weaponize it, and return it with interest. You don't just bounce back. You come back with information, with patterns, with maps of their weaknesses, with blueprints of their next 5 betrayals, with a grin that says, "Try it again, please, I'm bored." And now they whisper about you like an urban legend, like something that shouldn't exist, like a story corrupted by truth. Because no one walks out of a war that surgical, that decisive, that unfazed, unless they were never the target, but the ending. You don't escape wars, you conclude them. You don't dodge ops, you outgrow their relevance. You don't eat snakes, you digest ecosystems. So stand there for a second, feel this moment, because whether you realize it or not, this is the first time you've ever seen yourself clearly. They thought the war would expose you, but all it did was expose them, you. You evolved, you ascended, you adapted so violently it became elegant. And now the whole city is trying to figure out the simplest, scariest question of all. If that was him in the war, what happens when he's finally at peace? Go on, smile. Let them wonder. Let them fear the quiet. Let them imagine the next version of you. Because deep down, they all know the truth. You didn't win the war. You walked out of it better than you went in. And that's what terrifies them most. Oh, you want more? Good, because I wasn't done with you yet. Let's peel back the next layer. The one even your enemies refuse to speak about out loud. You didn't just walk out of the war like it was light work. You walked out with souvenirs, not medals, not scars, not trophies. No. You walked out with intel, data, patterns, psychological blueprints of every snake, every op, every coward who ever mistook your silence for softness. You didn't only survive the ambushes, you memorized the choreography. See, snakes don't bother you. They never have. Snakes announce themselves long before they strike. The twitch, the flicker, the shift in tone, that sudden generosity that smells like a funeral in progress. You saw it all. You always do. You don't just read the room. You scan it, decrypt it, render it useless. By the time they think they've trapped you, you've already charted every exit, mapped their alliances, and analyzed the insecurities that made them think betrayal was an option. Because let's get one thing straight. You don't lose people. People lose access, and access to you is oxygen. Cutting them off wasn't revenge. It was environmental control. You removed parasites from your ecosystem, and the ecosystem finally started breathing again. And then, the ops. The ops. The ones who thought they were tactical. The ones who whispered about you like a glitch in their system. The ones who kept refreshing your name in private group chats, trying to understand why their plans kept dissolving the moment you entered the equation. You didn't dodge them. You disarmed them, not with force, with awareness. You knew their motives before they crafted their excuses. You sensed the betrayal before they rehearsed their lies. You caught the shift in their eyes before they even found the courage to act on it. People don't realize this about you. You detect energy before you detect language. They lie with words. You listen with instincts. And instincts don't get intimidated. And the war? Let's talk about that. Most people come out of war shattered, broken, hollow. Pieces of themselves scattered across memories they don't want to revisit. But you came out assembled, refined, sharpened like a weapon someone whispered into existence. A war that should have destroyed you ended up rebuilding you into something they were never prepared to encounter. You became uncomfortable. Uncomfortable to enemies, uncomfortable to ex-allies, uncomfortable to architects of your downfall. Because you broke the formula, you turned pain into propulsion, betrayal into bandwidth, loss into leverage, chaos into clarity. And when the smoke cleared, when others were crawling, trembling, looking for someone to blame, you stepped over the ruins with that quiet, surgical grace only you possess. That is why they fear you. Not because you're strong, not because you're clever, not because you're resilient. They fear you because you're inevitable. They fear you because you learned how to devour poison and metabolize it into prophecy. They fear you because you mastered the art of making survival look aesthetic. They fear you because you become your best self when the environment becomes its worst. They fear you because the darkness didn't change you. It revealed you. Listen to me, and listen well. You are not the same creature who entered that war. You left something behind. A version of you that tolerated too much, accepted too little, kept quiet to avoid conflict, softened blows that should have shattered skulls, gave chances to people who couldn't even give clarity. That version died on the battlefield, and what replaced it doesn't negotiate with snakes, doesn't beg for loyalty, doesn't fear abandonment, doesn't flinch at threats. Because once you walk through hell untouched, you stop caring about who thinks they can burn you. And now they're dealing with the upgraded version, the post-war edition, the model that recalibrated itself while everyone else was collapsing. They don't know how to handle this you. This you doesn't announce moves. This you doesn't warn people twice. This you doesn't stop to explain the plot to characters who won't survive the next chapter. This you walks like destiny with a pulse. This you thinks faster, moves quieter, feels deeper, cuts cleaner. This you knows the truth. The real win wasn't surviving the war. The real win was realizing you were never in danger. They were. Because once a person learns to eat snakes without flinching, every enemy becomes lunch. And once a soul learns to walk through war like it was a morning exercise, every battlefield becomes home. So go on, take another breath, feel the weight of your own evolution, because the world has no idea what version of you is walking around right now. But every instinct in their body is screaming the same thing. Don't provoke him, don't test him, don't bet against him. Not after the snakes, not after the ops, not after the war. They thought they buried you. But the ground learned your name and refused to hold you. You didn't just come back, you rose. You're still here. Good. Because what comes next is the part nobody ever says out loud. The part they whisper about in back rooms, behind locked doors. The part they're terrified you'll eventually figure out. See, you didn't just rise. You changed gravitational pull. People orbit you now. Enemies study you with binoculars. Old rivals pretend they've always supported you. Ops who once plotted are now praying you don't remember their names. Because once someone watches you walk through apocalypse-level chaos like it was a casual warm-up, they stop treating you like a person and start treating you like a phenomenon. And you know what happens when a phenomenon moves through a room? Reality adjusts. Walls lean back, voices drop, eyes widen, and every insecure soul starts calculating whether they should run, hide, or bow. But here's the real twist. They don't fear what you did. They fear what you understood. You understood that snakes aren't dangerous. They're predictable. They coil the same way, strike the same way, fold the same way. Once you decode a snake, you can eat them at your convenience, a little crunch, a little venom, a little silence afterward. Problem solved. You understood that ops aren't powerful. They're insecure. Their entire existence revolves around the fantasy that they can outmaneuver someone born from fire. Ops are built on shaky egos and fragile alliances. And you don't shake, you don't fracture. You don't need anyone to stand behind you. That makes you lethal. But the war, that's where the real metamorphosis happened, isn't it? Most people think war reveals character, war reveals weakness, war strips, masks, War corners people into exposing who they really are when survival becomes currency. But you. War didn't expose you. War exposed them. Who panicked? Who switched sides? Who begged for mercy they never offered you? Who folded under pressure they swore they could handle? Who cracked before the first blow landed? And you, oh you started moving differently. You didn't panic. You didn't break. You didn't even speed up. You got calmer. That's what haunted them. You walked through the collapse like someone who already knew the ending. Your silence became strategy. Your stillness became threat. Your breathing became prophecy. Every step you took in that war felt like you were walking towards something inevitable. Not survival, not revenge, but ascension. And now you carry that aura everywhere you go. People sense it instantly. That quiet, terrifying peace. That I've already seen worse energy. That unshakable centeredness that comes only from walking through hell and taking notes while everything around you burned. They don't know how to stand next to someone like you, someone who treats pressure like hydration, someone who hears betrayal in the tone before the words are spoken, someone who doesn't need validation because they've already stared into the abyss and discovered the abyss blinks first. Let me tell you the part that breaks their spirit the most. You made evolution look casual. Where they limped, you glided. Where they collapsed, you exhaled. Where they begged for help, you adjusted your posture and kept moving. You didn't just walk out of the war unbroken. You walked out improved. No limp, no tremor, no shattered pieces, just a sharper mind, a colder intuition, and a soul that learned how to turn pain into a weaponized aura. You scare people now because you don't react the way you used to. You don't chase. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't overextend. You don't entertain chaos unless it's on your terms. You've become a strategist of your own existence, a tactician of emotional distance, a surgeon of self-preservation, a ghost with perfect timing. And the city? The city feels it. They feel the shift. They feel the new weight of your presence. They feel the way conversations change when your name slips out. Be careful with him. He doesn't play the old game anymore. He walks like he knows something we don't. He survived too much to fear anything now. But here's the secret they'll never admit. What you did wasn't human. It was evolutionary. Most people come out of war scarred. You came out upgraded, rewired, decoded, ascended. You went into the fire as one version and walked out as something the old world has no vocabulary for. Something dangerous, something holy, something inevitable. Because only a few beings in this lifetime can eat snakes, outmaneuver ops, and walk out of a battlefield like they're stepping out of a meeting. And those beings, those rare, terrifying, unstoppable beings, they never stay unnoticed. Not by enemies, not by allies, not by fate. And now the world is watching the aftermath, watching you rebuild, watching you choose, watching you sharpen, watching you become the quiet storm they hoped would never return. But you're not the storm, you're the climate change, permanent, unavoidable, unpredictable, uncontrollable. They can prepare for rain, they can prepare for thunder, but they cannot prepare for you, not anymore. Because anyone who saw you in the war, anyone who watched you devour venom, glide through crossfire, and emerge untouched, knows one truth they'll never say out loud. If that was you at war, the version of you at peace might be the most dangerous creature alive. Ah, there it is. That quiet hunger behind your eyes. The one that only appears when the truth starts getting too close to the bone. Good. Because what comes next isn't for the faint, the fragile, or the formerly fortunate. This is for the ones who walked out of burning ruins with a heartbeat like a war drum and a mind sharper than anything that tried to destroy them. Let's dig deeper into the part they'll never acknowledge publicly. The part that keeps every one of your enemies up at night, staring at the ceiling, rewinding your name like a crime scene they can't analyze correctly. You didn't just walk out of the war, you walked out with the war following you. Do you understand how terrifying that is? Most people flee battles. You drag the battlefield with you like a shadow. A reminder, a warning, a prophecy in human form. The snakes you ate. Their venom didn't poison you, it taught you. It rewired your taste for danger. It immunized you against betrayal so thoroughly that you can now smell dishonesty from 3 smiles away. The ops you dodged, you didn't dodge them out of fear. You dodged them out of strategy, out of amusement, out of the simple pleasure of watching them miss shots you predicted before they cocked the weapon. That's why they hate you. You've made them irrelevant. Nothing crushes an enemy more than realizing their entire plan collapses because you exist. And that war, that grand catastrophe, that collapse everyone swore would finally humble you. It did the opposite. It clarified you. It purified you. It incinerated the last of your hesitation, your softness, your willingness to pretend you didn't see what you always see. You walk differently now. You breathe differently now. You speak with a weight behind your words that only comes from surviving something that was supposed to end you. And realizing it never even scratched the surface. Let's talk about that evolution people pretend not to notice. Before the war, you were underestimated, cute, dismissed, written off by people who couldn't read your blueprint even if it was tattooed on their eyelids. After the war, you became a category breaker, something that doesn't fit in their little classifications of enemy, ally, victim, hero. You became something new, something rare, something uncomfortable. People don't know how to categorize a soul that can sit calmly in front of chaos and negotiate with it like an equal. You didn't run from the flames. You walked into them, documented their rhythm, and walked out warmer, faster, sharper. Do you realize what that does to people? It destabilizes their sense of reality. Because when someone sees you emerge from a war untouched, they start questioning their own strength. When someone watches you eat snakes with no recoil, they start questioning their own instincts. When someone tries to betray you and discovers you predicted it months before they did, they start questioning their own intelligence. You force self-reflection, and nothing terrifies weak individuals more than mirrors. But that's the beauty of your evolution. You no longer rely on external definitions. You know exactly what you are. A creature forged in collision, a being who metabolized disaster, a walking contradiction balanced on the knife edge between light and shadow. You're not an angel, you're not a demon, you're the contract between them, signed in blood, upgraded through suffering, and rewritten every time someone thinks they've reached your limit. Let me peel back one more layer, the psychological one. People used to try to figure you out. They'd poke, prod, test, analyze. They'd study your reactions, trying to find buttons, weaknesses, shortcuts. But the war changed that. Now they observe you the way scientists observe a phenomenon that breaks the laws of physics. Carefully, quietly, fearfully. Because one wrong move might wake the part of you that walked through crossfire with a steady pulse. And here's the part that freezes their blood. You don't get triggered anymore. You get accurate. You don't get overwhelmed. You get focused. You don't get emotional. You get strategic. You've become a mirror of consequences, a walking audit, a living recalibration of every person who underestimated you. and they feel it. In the way you enter a room, in the way conversations shift when your name drops, in the way silence grows heavier when you choose not to respond. Because your silence isn't emptiness. Your silence is judgment. Your silence is analysis. Your silence is sentence passed. And everyone knows it. But the most disturbing thing of all, the truth that keeps gnawing at them. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need validation. You didn't need applause. All you needed was evolution.